Tennessee with a flip. What can you tell us about the latest in recruiting?
Yes, and this will be bank on it, guys. And we're talking about Tennessee lost 3-star wide receiver Tyran Evans, who decommitted from the Vols yesterday out of North Carolina in the 2022 class, 2026 class, excuse me. I have a theory, and it's bank on it. And I'll let you set it up for it, but here's my bank on it. Tennessee lost Tyran Evans. Tennessee lost Tyran Evans because they're about to flip 5-star wide receiver Tristan Keys from LSU. What do you think of that?
Could be. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. You're early in the recruiting process. Why not keep Tyran Evans and whoever else you can get at this point?
Because my theory is Tyran Evans at 6'3" wants to be the go-to wideout of a school. And if Tristan Keys flips to Tennessee, there is no way in hell he will be a go-to wideout. I think Tyran Evans has decided to flip. And I think maybe a school like Bill Belichick is offering him a few things at North Carolina, since he's from North Carolina, because he could be a go-to receiver at North Carolina. So I think this all comes down to Tristan Keys, who is an LSU commitment, but he's out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. But Tennessee is making a huge run for him. And I think
okay, so let's look at Evans for a second, because I was totally probably would end up at I made some phone calls yesterday, but there's NC State, there's Kentucky involved. Sure, Bill Belichick could get involved, but this notion of trading up, this used to be a big no-no. I don't know if you're aware of that, but if you did something like this in the old version of recruiting, which is you're essentially saying that they pulled the scholarship, right?
No. I'm essentially saying that's what you're saying. I'm saying Tyran Evans.
Let me ask you this. Are they saying this? Are they not calling him as? Are they not showing him the love? You don't actually ever pull a scholarship. You just stop calling the guy all the time. So are you sure that wouldn't fit the parameters of what you're thinking?
Okay, I see what you're saying. No, I think that's possible. Okay. I think but why would they?
You never say the words, sorry, pulling your scholarship. I mean, nobody ever says those words. They just stop calling for a month, and you're like, where am I in these plans?
Yeah, so either way, I think this is directly connected to Tennessee getting ready to flip Tristan Keys from LSU. And Tristan Keys would be a huge pickup for them. Obviously, I mean, we're talking about probably the best wide receiver in the class in 2026. He's been committed to LSU since March. And Dave, you know this. I mean, we can name a couple. I believe Paris Harrelson, the most recent one, but the Mississippi kids that do commit to Tennessee, they're not common, but they end up being very, very, very good usually.
Yeah, I think that's because they're usually very, very, very good, to be honest with you.
Mississippi's got an incredible high school football, for those who don't know.
Yeah, you're right. And, well, I mean, I know that Tom Loy has predicted him to Tennessee, so you're not the only one with this this premonition. Now, I think that this would be just short of a David Sanders, Nico type pickup. I think Nico, in retrospect, we know he didn't recruit much for Tennessee, but that was still a splash pickup, a monster splash, right?
Correct.
Sanders was, I could argue, even more significant because I don't think they had to pay him nearly as much. But he was one of the top prospects at offensive tackle on Utah. And then you go get, if you're able to get Tristan Keys, who's been committed to LSU, but a lot of people have him predicted to Tennessee out of Hattiesburg, 6'3", 180 pounds. If you pull this guy, and this is one you hang your hat on national signing. So if you're right, then Tennessee's got something to brag about no matter what happens the rest of the recruiting.
Yes, exactly. And Tristan Keys is a 5-star across all services, which is big because one of the things that people may not know is that 5-star recruits, it's hard enough to be a 5-star. I think even I don't think people realize how rare it is to be a 5-star across all major services because they're so different in how they value players, aren't they? Particularly ESPN, which you covered, is so bad at it. But
Yeah,
It's
I wanted to say it's like 25 or so
yeah,
at the
and
most, maybe even 20.
well, there's 25 5 stars, I think. Well, no, in football, you're right. There's more than that, but yeah, I mean, you're right, and that's where David. So Darnell Wright was the before David Sanders. Darnell Wright was the last player Tennessee had committed that was a 5 star across every service without any question. And before that, it was Eric Berry, and David Sanders was as highly rated as Eric Berry. Tristan Keys would be on that class. He would be as highly rated as David Sanders and Eric Berry overall. So I think this is a I don't think Tennessee's losing any sleep over losing Tyran Evans, put it that way. And I'm with you. What you're saying makes more sense. They can we play bank on it on this?
Yep. Let's go bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better. Bank on it is
Tennessee.
right now. Go for it.
My bank on it is this: Tennessee nudged Tyran Evans into a decommitment because they know they're about to flip Tristen Keys from LSU.
Man, I don't think that's crazy at all. You were all obviously the thing I don't like about that. You're putting a lot of power in these young men's hands, and maybe that's just where we are. But that's my concern. The bank on it. I could see that happening. Man, you're putting a lot of power in these young men's hands, and what happens when they're not happy? They get on campus, they transfer. And I think there needs to be an argument made for taking a guy who would commit early and want to be a part of your program as opposed to somebody who's jumping on board a little bit later. Bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Man, I guess I'm trying to think, what kind of receiver do you want? Given the fact that it takes a year to pick up this offense, some receivers have gotten frustrated and left. Do you want a guy that's in love with your university and wants to be the best receiver he can? Or do you want a guy who's just uber talented? Caleb, I could make the debate that you want the guy who's glued to your university, wants to be a superstar there for 3 years or maybe even 4. And I think that you're going to see programs to continue to evaluate that. I mean, which would you rather have? Jason Swain, who's dedicated and talented enough, or Robert Meacham, who was unguardable when he was healthy?
Is that really a question? Is that really a question between Jason Swain or Robert Meacham?
I'm curious. He only got one good year out of Meacham.
Yeah, and you got one semi good year out of Swain. I mean, like Robert Meacham all day. It's easily Robert Meacham. And by the way, I understand your point. You don't want like a bust of a 5-star who's like a diva who don't work out. I'm not saying you want James Banks, okay? But I am saying that, like, let's just put it this way. Brew McCoy, glued to Tennessee, loved it. Still couldn't do what he still shouldn't have been playing last year because of his injury. Love the guy, respect everything about him, but come on. You're taking Robert Meacham every time. And by the way, sometimes players who are that talented fall in love with the program when they're there. I mean, you've covered a lot of 5-stars, haven't you? That they actually, not only were they 5-stars, but they became great, or 5-star caliber players. They became great leaders and great ambassadors for the program at the same time. And so there's no reason that couldn't be the case. And particularly with the receiver also.
It's funny you bring that up. If I can interrupt for just 1 second. I always thought that was one of Philip Fulmer's greatest overlooked strengths, because generally within a year, and this happened year in and year out, by the end of a year, those players were in love with Tennessee.
Oh yeah, they you're right. He scouted guys who loved Tennessee a lot. It was a great culture. He got a little less picky in the 2000s because he had to be, because Mark Richt kind of walled off Georgia a little more than, like, Fulmer used to go into Georgia and get whoever the hell he wanted, pretty much. and then he had to be a little specific. So yeah, but in general, I'm taking the wideout that's a 5-star and the raw talent. I don't need them to be a leader. I don't expect them to be a leader. I'm not here to watch them be a leader. I have no issues with the wideout not being a leader. All they have to do is catch balls that come their way. That's it. Jalen Hyatt wasn't really a leader. Still won the Bolitnikoff because Hendon Hooker was the leader of that team.
Yep. Wouldn't argue with that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Look at the message board for a moment. Brandon to Keys, the next great quarterback wide receiver duo. While we're talking a little bit of recruiting, there was a lot of pub that Faison Brandon might be wavering a little bit on his commitment. He's the highly touted prospect in the 2026 class. Did you hear that for a bit, and are you hearing it now?
I'm not hearing it now. That was a thing back in winter, and there were talk that he was there was talk that he was looking elsewhere, and there was talk that maybe his recruiting stock was going to fall. The exact opposite has happened the last week. He looks all in on Tennessee. He's apparently recruiting for Tennessee, and ESPN, I did a segment on this yesterday, based on what they've been seeing, have him the best quarterback at the Elite 11 camp. Like, he's apparently wowing everybody. One analyst said that he's ahead of where Hendon Hooker was at the same time, and Hendon Hooker's age.
Well, can I tell you this? A lot of the stuff that you're saying is basically a lot of recruiters trying to bring him down a little bit and hope that they can make him more approachable.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean that happens a lot. The whole not living up to the hype, and now suddenly he is living up to the hype. So he's going to try to find out where that came from, because some coach or somebody evaluating him shared that, and he's going to want to know who that is. And I don't blame him.